During Lent, any practice that we take up should be something that we think will help to deepen our connection to God. And one practice that I have found to be deepening of that connection is the practice of contemplative prayer. So in the late 14th century, an anonymous author wrote a book called The Cloud of Unknowing that's designed to teach the reader about contemplative prayer, and it offers advice and instruction. And that book is available in various editions that provide the text in modern English. It was originally written in Middle English. The difficulty is that even in modern English, the Cloud of Unknowing can still be a little dense to get through. It's not easy for me. And that's where this book comes in, right here. This is called The Cloud of Unknowing Distilled. And this book was written by a former colleague of mine, the Reverend Dr. Daniel London. He's an Episcopal priest and he's a scholar, and he is currently rector of a church in Eureka, California. Daniel writes in the introduction that he thinks of this book as an invitation to enter into the mystical wisdom of the anonymous author from Nottingham, who responds to the question, "Who is God?" with the humble words, "I don't know," but who then says, that is not the right question to ask because it means you're still in your head. Get out of your head and into your heart. I'll be dipping into the Cloud of Unknowing Distilled for this reflection series, and I invite you to join me on this journey to meet God in our hearts. I'm going to start by reading number 2 and number 3. These are numbered with their numbers corresponding to the short chapters in the Cloud of Unknowing. He doesn't have a distillation for every chapter, but for many of them. So first I'm going to read number 2, and then I'll read number 3. Number 2 is titled, Let Go. One thing that will prove to be a serious disservice to you in this process is an overinflated ego. This is the part of you that thinks you're better than everyone else and in no need of God's mercy and grace. This is the false self, and it will always trip you up and eventually, continually let you down. Let it go. Now. You are in the process of discovering your true self. This process requires sober humility and a healthy sense of self. Moreover, it requires a humble and patient love for God. And number 3 is called The Cloud of Unknowing. During the Holy Eucharist, when the priest says, "Lift up your hearts," the people respond, "We lift them to the Lord." That is exactly what I will be teaching you how to do, to lift up your heart to God. In order to do this, you need to practice letting go of everything except your patient love for God. As you let go and love God, you will discover a darkness. Do not be afraid. This darkness is the cloud of unknowing. It is the cloud that always exists between you and God, because God will always remain beyond your knowing. As you discover this darkness, saints and angels will be throwing a party in your honor. So the author is gently leading us into the practice of contemplative prayer. And I like that he talks right away about the false self and the true self. The false self is the part of each of us that thinks that we are just fine on our own and we don't need God's mercy and grace. We can do this ourselves. We need to learn to recognize it and let it go. Because the false self will only, always get in between our true self and God. Our true self is what we're here to discover as we continue on this journey of meeting God. So we meet God by lifting up our hearts, that reference to the Eucharistic liturgy. And the author tells us that when we do that, when we let go of everything except our love for God, we will become aware of a darkness. And that darkness is what the author calls the cloud of unknowing, and it's so important that the book is named after it. So the cloud of unknowing is always between us and God, because we cannot ever know God with our mind. And then I love that he says that the discovery of this cloud of unknowing is such a big deal that the saints and angels will be throwing a party in your honor, because it feels like, really? This darkness of nothing? How is this anything special? Shouldn't there be something glorious? But the discovering of this cloud of unknowing is the first step along the journey. So I invite you, whether you've been practicing contemplative prayer for years or whether you've never even tried it once, take some time, even just 2 minutes. Set yourself a timer. Take some time and sit in silence. Lift up your heart to God. And when thoughts or distractions or worries or whatever come, and they will, let them gently go. And again, lift up your heart to God. And see if you discover a darkness, that cloud of unknowing, even for a moment. And if you don't, well, maybe try again another time. Blessings.